The Acura RLX overall was a great sedan. I mean, it had the looks, had a lot of space, and had the build quality. But despite all of that, it was one of the worst selling vehicles for the Acura brand. And that's one of the main reasons they were discontinued. Maybe the price had a lot to do with that. In 2014, a regular base model RLX started at more than $48,000. And the RLX Sport Hybrid started at around $65,000. And with this being a full-size flagship sedan, it's kind of funny how Acura positions their cars. You would think that something like this would compete with the Audi A8 or of course the S-Class and the 7 Series. Well, Acura decided to benchmark the mid-size luxury cars. So that means things like the Audi A6, the E-Class, and the 5 Series were considered competitors for the RLX. So in early 2012, Acura decided to reveal the new RLX concept. This new concept looked like it was ready for production, and it was designed to be a replacement for the RL sedan. So when the actual production model came out, it changed very little from the concept. And this is always a great thing when a manufacturer shows us a neat looking concept and then carries over most of its styling cues to the real thing. Production of the Acura RL ended in summer 2012 as the factory was being retooled to go ahead and start producing the new RLX. The RL was overall a decent car, but it just lacked in certain areas. For example, the RL was criticized for being way too cramped, especially in the rear seats, despite its size and relatively high price tag. It was also criticized for other things like not having a V8. Well, Honda listened to those gripes, and they were going to fix some of these problems with their new flagship sedan. You still wouldn't get a V8, but you would get more interior space with this new upcoming luxury sedan. And I would like to point out that although there was a name change from RL to RLX in North America, the Honda Legend name still continued in Japan. So in other words, the car we knew here as the Acura RLX was in fact nothing more than the 5th generation Honda Legend in places like Japan. The RLX went on sale in March 2013 as an early 2014 model, and it was offered in two versions, a front-wheel drive base model and a hybrid variant that came equipped with Acura's super handling all-wheel drive. On the front-wheel drive version, there was a feature you could get, otherwise known as precision all-wheel steer, or you could just call it pause. This was pretty much Acura's way of saying independent rear steering. The RLX Sport Hybrid later debuted with sales beginning in September 2014. Now, I think it's safe to consider this as a rare model since only 250 of them were produced for the 2014 model year, and another 250 were produced in 2015 for the 2016 model year. With this new RLX, there was a direct injected 3.5 liter V6 using VTEC and variable cylinder management, along with a 6-speed automatic. It cranked out 310 horsepower and 272 pound-feet of torque and returned 20 miles per gallon in the city and 23 on the highway. The fuel-saving VCM worked in either 6 or 3-cylinder configurations. Hybrid models featured the VCM capability as well, with an added start-stop system to boost fuel economy. The hybrid used a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission with a 35 kilowatt electric motor built into it. Acura decided to take it a step even further, having each rear wheel powered by a 27 kilowatt electric motor. So there were 2 rear electric motors in total. This setup gave the hybrid a torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, with the rear wheels being strictly powered by electricity. So for those of you paying attention, that's a total of 4 power sources: the V6, 1 electric motor at the front, and 2 electric motors at the rear. All in all, the hybrid cranked out 377 horsepower and could do 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds flat. Pretty impressive for a hybrid car of this size, if you ask me. Also, the Sport Hybrid could run on EV power alone up to about 50 miles per hour. If you decided to buy one of these, the only real compromise will be a 20% reduction in trunk space. This is because of the 66-pound lithium-ion battery pack being placed behind the rear seat. The RLX was the first Acura model to offer standard dual-eye LED headlamps. Each headlight used 5 separate LED light sources, 4 low beams and 1 high beam. Acura decided to get rid of the swivel headlights, the ones where the lights would swivel as you turn the steering wheel when going around curves and turns, like the ones that were used on the previous generation RL. The hood, front fenders, and outer door panels are made from aluminum. Doing so saved a total of 79 pounds compared with steel components. And the hybrid came standard with LED fog lights, so that was another way you could distinguish the hybrid from the standard RLX. Now this car did get a mid-cycle refresh for 2018, and I must say it was definitely a polarizing design. The design of the pre-refresh was elegant and stunning. It looked expensive, and you would definitely look like a baller by simply driving one. The refresh, on the other hand, did have the right idea, but the new front end looked forced and grafted on, and really didn't integrate all that well into the body of the RLX. I think this design language would have worked if the RLX got a full redesign, and it ended up looking something like the second generation TLX. But even the TLX's refresh looked somewhat forced and grafted on. But anyway, I still like this car even if it looked a bit messy from certain angles. The car you see here on the screen is called the Acura Precision Concept. So yeah, this was a source of inspiration for the MDX, the refreshed RLX, and the refreshed and redesigned TLX. One of the standout features of Acura's new design language was the big diamond pentagon grille. This was actually a great looking design that looked even better in person. Changes to the interior had been made too. There was a new front seat design, steering wheel, wood trim, and an added espresso interior color option. The front-wheel drive RLX received a new 10-speed automatic transmission, and the length grew to 198.1 inches. This made the RLX the longest Honda or Acura sedan to date, and the first to exceed 5 meters. 2020 was the last year for the RLX. People claim the TLX became Acura's new flagship sedan, but the TLX was never really flagship material. Although they had a similar design language, the RLX was simply much larger than the TLX, offered more space, and was more of an appropriate flagship. The 2021 TLX then took position in Acura's lineup as quote-unquote the quickest, best handling, and most well-appointed sedan. So the RLX was discontinued in North America. However, the Honda Legend continued in other markets, including Japan. But that was only temporary, because in June 2021, it was announced that the new Legend would be discontinued at the end of that year with no apparent replacement. There was a rumor within the auto industry that the Acura Legend name would be making a comeback as a fully electric sedan. While that is still a possibility, no official confirmation regarding a Legend EV has been made. So back in the 90s, Acura had so many cool cars to choose from. Of course, we had the second generation Legend, and you had a choice of a sedan or a luxury coupe. And both were quite pricey even by 90s standards. If you didn't want to splurge the extra cash on a Legend sedan, you could just get one of these instead. And yeah, they were a little quirky, but I like the way they look. You know, they were unique and they are quite rare nowadays. I can't recall the last time I saw one of these on the road. Maybe they had reliability issues, I don't know. Then later on, we got things like the CL Coupe and the TL Sedan. Now, I'm not going to name every single Acura car, but the point I'm making here is the variety we had to choose from during the 90s and hell, even the early 2000s. And I also remember back in the early 90s, driving an Acura actually meant something. You know, like driving an Acura Legend back in the early to mid 90s. That was pretty much baller status. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with the TLX. I haven't heard any confirmation on the third generation model. If the TLX does go away, then I guess we'll just be stuck with the Integra as the only non-SUV Acura product. But that's it for this one. You guys let me know what you think. Have you ever drove an RLX? Do you like the RLX? Do you think it should make a comeback? Do you think they should give it a second shot? Alright, so let me know what you think, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.